Okay, in this lab, I'm going to be creating a VPC. Inside of that VPC, I'm going to create a public and a private subnet. They're going to be in one availability zone, both of them. I'm going to take care of the routing tables for the public subnet, and I'll see if the permissions in here allow me to create a NAT gateway. And hopefully I will be able to also create an EC2 instance. So let me start this by going to the VPC menu. So I select the VPC option here. Once in the VPC, I'm going to call my VPC. That's going to create a VPC. I'm just going to create a plain VPC by itself. Not going to use the wizard, so I'm just going to call it my, uh, yeah, my dash VPC. I'm going to use IPv4. Um, Let me use 172, let me use 16.0.0. This is going to be easier for me to remember. So this is fine, and I create, oops, oh, I forgot, this is a CIDR block, so remember, we need to use the /16 if we want to use this large of a CIDR block. So I create my VPC. The next thing I need to do is I need to create subnets. Well, no, first of all, I'm going to create an internet gateway. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an internet gateway. Remember, whenever you create an internet gateway, it's kind of like floating um, in the air, so you need to attach it to a VPC. So I'm going to create my internet gateway. So now that I have done this, I just simply create it. Next thing is telling me because it's unattached, I have to attach it. So I'm going to attach it to my VPC. It's here. The default VPC did not appear here because it already has an internet gateway attached to it, and that's why it's going to be like that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create two subnets, and those subnets, so I went to the subnets menu here, and then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create subnet. The VPC is the one that I created earlier, and then I just need to specify my dash public subnet. And then the availability zone, I'm going to use availability zone B. And the CIDR block, I need to remember what was the CIDR block that I used for my VPC. Because if you look at this right now, it's giving me some other IP address. It's even giving me what's supposed to be a public IP address because it starts with 2. And 2 is not part of the ranges of IP address that we saw that can be used for public IP addresses. But this is going to be 172.16. Remember, I can use the third octet is going to help me distinguish or separate between the different subnets that I have. I'm going to use 1 for this one, /0. And then I need to specify the CIDR block. What I'm doing here by typing in 24 is that this number for this particular network, these numbers are going to be fixed. 172, 16, and 1 are going to be fixed. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a subnet. And once I create the subnet, once I create the subnet, I'm going to create the second subnet. And here I'm going to say my VPC. This is going to be my private subnet. Yes, this is my private subnet. Availability zone, I'm going to use B, same as the previous one, so they are in the same availability zone. The CIDR block for my VPC is going to be 172.16.2.0/24. And once I do that, I create the subnet. So I have two subnets. Again, the reason why I cannot see my public subnet is because right now it's just filtering one single subnet. Right now I can see all of the other subnets together with the ones that I created. So right now, given that I have attached already the internet gateway to my VPC, I'm going to modify the routing table of this public subnet to be able to uh, so that it's able to access the internet. I'm going to make association that if anybody needs to go to the internet, they need to the route. I'm going to create a route to the internet gateway. So I'm going to go to internet routes. So basically what I need to do is I need to create a new routing table. And this routing table is going to be based off of the routing table that was the original one that was created in the VPC. So because of that, I'm going to have to specify, so this is going to be my route table, and then I can say here for public subnet. Okay, so this is going to be that one, and then once I select the one that this is my VPC, so it's going to inherit the original routing table that was attached to my VPC in general. So right now, this is going to be the routing table for my for the public subnet. So now what I need to do is I can edit the routes, and now I'm going to be adding a route. This is the one that got inherited. So this is going to be another routing table, and this is saying if you want to go to the internet, use the internet gateway. So in here, there are different types of gateways that could potentially be used, but in this case, I'm going to use the internet gateway. You can see also that if this were a public subnet, and assuming that I had created a NAT gateway, I could potentially use the NAT gateway. So I'm going to use the internet gateway, and this is the ID, and that was the one that was attached to my, let me show it again. This is, so if I do internet gateway, you can see here it's pointing to my internet gateway. That's the name that I gave that one. So now that I have created this one, I'm going to save the changes. I don't need to add any other route. Yes, it's going to be this one. I need to select it and then save the changes. So now this one, the public subnet, well, I haven't attached it yet, by the way. I created the routing table. So the routing table is inside of my VPC, but it hasn't been attached to any of my two subnets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an association. So edit subnet associations. Uh, so I'm going to associate this one to the public subnet. And if I save the association, that's that. So right now I have created an associate. This is the routing table that I created for my private subnet. Now, I don't know if I will be able to create a NAT gateway, but I will give it a try. The first thing I need to do is I need to see if I'm able to create an elastic IP. If I'm able to create an elastic IP, to I might be able to create a NAT gateway. Oh, I was able to create the elastic gateway. What the reason why I'm saying that I might have not have access to this is because whenever I'm using this lab, I'm allowed to create certain resources. Some other resources I cannot create, but I'm glad that it allowed me to create an elastic IP. By the way, I'm going to give it a name. I didn't know that I could create it, but I'm going to call it my elastic uh, IP. And remember, this is going to be a public static IP address. Static because it doesn't change. So I have now this. Now the next thing I need to do is, because I have a private subnet, I want that subnet to be able, anything that I place in there, I want it to be able to access to be able to download patches, stuff like that. So I'm going to create a NAT gateway. I'm going to click create NAT gateway. It's going to ask me what name I want to give it, my NAT gateway. And I need to specify in what subnet this is going to be. Well, the interesting thing that you can see here is it is not asking me in what VPC I want to place it in. Instead, it's offering me all of the subnet, not only my own ones, but the subnets that belong to that belong to the default gateway, which is interesting. But I wanted to I want to create a NAT gateway that is going to be placed. Remember, the NAT gateway has to be placed inside of the public subnet. So the connectivity type is going to be public. In other words, I want it to be, yeah, I want it to be able to go out to the internet. And then I need to associate an elastic IP. That's why I had to create an elastic IP earlier. So then I will have an elastic IP address. So now I'm going to create an NAT gateway. Okay, so now, so far what I have is my VPC. I have a public subnet that already has a route attached to it that allows it to go out to the internet if if there's traffic that's going to be destined to the internet by using the internet gateway. Now I have created the NAT gateway inside of the public subnet of um, of the um, of the public subnet that I created. The next thing that I need to do right now is I'm going to have to create a new route table that is going to be used with my with my private subnet. So I'm just going to copy this because I want the name of that. Let me see. I want the name um, of the new routing table to have kind of like a similar format as this one. So um, I need to create a new I need to create a new routing table that is going to be different than the main routing table that came with my VPC. So I need to create a new one. And here I'm going to use this, except that I'm going to indicate that it's going to be for my private subnet. The subnet the VPC that is going to belong to is my VPC. Then I create this route table. Once you create a new route table, you will be able to edit the route table and be able to add new entries. This is where I can add a new entry. So here what I'm going to say is if anyone from in the EC2 instances in my private subnet want to access the internet, they should use the NAT gateway. So here's the NAT gateway. So here is that NAT gateway that I created a moment ago. And now I'm going to save changes. And now if I take a look at my subnets, okay. So pretty much I have done everything that I had to do. I created my VPC. I created a private subnet, a public subnet. The public subnet, well, first I also attach an internet gateway to the VPC. Um, then the public subnet, I created a routing table for it. I edited that new routing table for my public subnet, and then I edited and added a route. So if I wanted to go to the internet, I was going to go to, I was, it was, if the destination was the internet, the target was going to be the internet gateway. Then I created an elastic IP address because I knew that I was going to use it for my NAT gateway. I created my elastic IP address. It was floating at first. Once I created my NAT gateway, I was able to associate it with that elastic IP that I created because it was kind of like floating, wasn't being used. So I did that. And then the last thing I did was I edited the routing table for my private subnet. I created that new routing table, and that routing table allows if I allows traffic if I need to go to it's not here yet. Let me see. There's something. My private subnet seems to be missing the. Okay, I think yes, seems to be missing an entry. Oh, I cannot. This seems to be the main routing table. There's okay. So let me see. There's something wrong here with the associations of the routing table. So let me go to the routing table that I just created a moment ago. So I need to go to route tables and then the route table for my private subnet. This seems to be missing something. Oh, there is not explicit, I haven't associated. So what happens is I created the routing table, but if you don't associate with anything, then it's not as, yeah, you need to create an associating. an association. Edit subnet association. So this one is going to be associated with my private subnet, and then I save the association. So now if I go to my subnets, if I take a look at my private subnet, it should have in the route table, right now I have it selected as you can see. If I go to the route table here, it has two entries, the one for local traffic and the other one that's going to be for, let me see, why can I not, okay. There are the two entries. The one that says anything that's part of the CIDR block of the VPC is considered to be local. And if I want to go to the internet, use the NAT gateway. So the next thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch two EC2 instances actually. So I'm going to go to the EC2 service. And after I go to the EC2 service, what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch an EC2 instance. I may have to launch, I might have to launch a web server, I think. So instances, so I just need to go to, I need to scroll down and I need to launch an instance, launch instance. And then what I'm going to do now is I just need to start provisioning an EC2 instance. Um, okay, so it's just taking some time. Okay, and I'm going to call it my web server simply because it's going to be a web server. So it's going to be a web server. It's going to be Linux 2023. The instance type is, I believe I should be able to, T2 micro should be fine. Well, let me see if I have a better one as part of the free tier. T2 micro, let me see, maybe I can use a T3 mic. Oh, well, T3, any of the T3s are not available. I cannot use any of those. I have to use the most powerful one that I can use is the T2 micro. So I'm going to launch this one. I need to select a key. In this case, I'm going to create a new key just in case I need to remote into this EC2 instance. And I'm going to call it VPC creation. This is what I can remember that this key is associated with the VPC creation lab. And it's going to be a PM because I'm going to be using SSH from my computer. The the VPC, what I want to place it into, I don't know which this ID refers to, but I need to, if I go to edit, I will be able to see. Well, that was referring to the default, and I want to place it inside of my VPC. And then the next thing I want to do is I want this to be inside of my public IPR, my public subnet, because this is going to be a web server. Do I want this machine to have a public IP address? Yes. Okay, so this is a setting I mentioned in the past that whenever you launch an EC2 instance inside of a subnet, the subnet is going to inherit a property related to whether the EC2 instance is going to have a public IP address or not. In this case, that setting I did not change it, so the default seems to be disabled. So I'm going to select enable. This is just going to be only for the EC2 instance. It's not going to be a setting that is going to modify the subnet. This is just the EC2 instance. And then I'm going to create a new security group. I can call it like this. I'm going to allow traffic on, I'm going to allow traffic on port HTTP. So that's why I'm going to use HTTP. And port 80, the source is going to be anywhere. I want anyone to be able to connect to this system. And it's going to be HTTP traffic, incoming traffic from the internet. And so that is that. Next, advanced network. Okay, so I don't need to modify that. The next thing I need to do is I need to go to advanced details, and this is where I need to type in the script that will allow me to install Apache Web Server. Okay, I found the script to be able to install the Apache Web Server. So this is shebang, bin bash. This is the package manager, and I'm going to install HTTPD. I'm going to enable that service, so whenever I reboot this machine, it will be started. But for this particular session that I will be in, I want to be able to start the HTTPD, and then I'm going to create this small HTML file, uh, and I will uh, the web page that will have the hello from your web server, and then that's going to be redirected to this file, which will create an index HTML. And now that I've done that, I can just launch my EC2 instance. And I should be able to, okay, I should be able to view my instances. And then the other instance that I can create is going to be, well, actually, I could create a couple of more instances. But let me see, I'm trying to decide what to do. I'm trying to decide whether I should, well, I'm going to create a second instance. This one is going to be one that I'm going to be placed inside of the, this is going to be placed inside of the private subnet. So launch instances. And in here, this is going to be my, I don't know. I'll pretend that this is my database server. I don't have any database software installed, not going to have any database server installed in it, but usually databases are placed inside of private subnets. So I will use this. We'll use all the defaults pretty much. I'm going to use the key that I created. The network is going to be in the network that I created, not the default VPC, sorry. So it's going to be my VPC. And the network is going to be my private subnet because this is a database server. This is not going to have an IP address assigned to it. I can just leave the security group the way it is. I can assign traffic from anywhere. That should be fine. Let me see. Well, in this case, there's something I can do that's interesting here. I can say that any computer that has a specific security group be able to access my so you can see that you can specify CIDR blocks to be able to access my EC2 instance by using SSH. But I can also reference security groups. So pretty much what I'm saying is I can have a machine that has a security group attached to it to be able to access my server. I believe that unfortunately, I didn't give it the name that I should have given it, but I believe that I used the launch wizard one. That is let me actually create a new page here. Uh, let's see, okay. I'm going to take a look at the security group of the previous EC2 instance. I want to see what is the name of that. But I believe it's going to be the launch wizard something. So what I'm trying to say with this is I want that any machine that has attached a specific security group, like for instance, this machine has a security group attached to it. What I can say is I want machines that have such and such security group to be able to access my EC2 instance. So if I go to, yeah, so it's the launch wizard. That's the name, launch wizard one. I don't think that I can modify the name of that security group. Yeah, I don't think I can modify it. So it's going to be launch wizard one. Unfortunately, it's not a very good name to have, but I will have to use it with that one. So I'm going to select launch wizard one. What this means is any machine that happens that has this security group associated with it will be able to access my EC2 in this private subnet for SSH at least. And I don't need to specify any details, so I'm just going to launch this second one. I'm not sure if the first one is ready by now, but I'm going to click on instances and take a look at the other one to see if it has passed the two checks. It has passed both checks. So what I need to do right now is I need to connect to the IP address, the public IP address of this EC2 instance, and see if I can establish a connection to it using HTTP. Uh, let's see. So I need a public IP address, so I'm going to copy it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to access it. So this is the IP address of that server. And let's see. Okay, so this is the hello from your web server. So that server was launched inside of that custom VPC that I created. So that tells you that it worked fine. And then my second EC2 instance is being launched. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, this other one is being launched. But you can see that it pretty much what I was trying to do worked. I just want to see if there's an option here in which you can SSH into a computer, provided there's this option here that allows you to SSH. Well, this one doesn't seem to be enabled. There is Session Manager, which is part of Systems Manager. This allows you to create remote sessions allows you to connect remotely to an EC2 instance without using SSH. But this is probably not enabled in this case. You can see that the reason why this failed is the role that I assume there was a role that was assigned to me as a student in my user account, and it doesn't allow me access into being able to remote an EC2 instance this way, unfortunately. Otherwise, it would have been good. Let's see. Let's give it a try. Let's see if I'm able to establish a remote session. No, it seems my credentials don't allow me to do that. Well, sometimes it's good to find out what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. But as you saw, I was able to connect to the web server. If I go to the EC2 dashboard, I should be able to see whether the other EC2 instance is up and running. So my database server is not up and running yet. But if you wanted, because this database server was placed inside of a private subnet, I cannot access it from the internet, even if I use SSH. The only server that could potentially access this database server would be this one, my web server, because I said any computer that has the my launch security group or something wizard is able to access is anything that has attached that security group will be able to access this machine, and this one happens to have that security group. It's called the Launch Wizard One. But this concludes pretty much the lab that I started in class, but I wasn't able to complete. The main reason why I wasn't able to complete it was I couldn't edit the main routing table that came with my VPC, the one that I created. I needed to create a new routing table, and the new routing table was the one that I ended up associating with the public subnet. And then once I created a new routing table, I was able to edit it and be able to add uh, an entry. So any EC2 instance that was placed inside of that public subnet, if they needed to go to the internet, they were able to hit the target was going to be the internet gateway. Uh, and so that's how this ended up working. So this is the end of this, and I hope that you learned something from this.